views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Bronxnet or the program underwriters.
Hi, I'm Dr Despina Afentouli, and this is Modern Odyssey on Bronxnet and beyond. Today we're going to talk about stress, anxiety, and pandemic or post-pandemic reality. Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, a unique lifestyle situation has been experienced, an almost universal lockdown. Most schools and universities around the world switched to online learning, while teleworking gained ground as a form of labor. Attempts to control the spread of the coronavirus pandemic raised concerns over mental health. People may have felt not only overwhelmed due to this situation, but also stressful and anxious on how they should deal with it. Sometimes they might also feel uncertain about returning to work or school. Our guest today is the Greek-American professor of pediatrics and endocrinology emeritus at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens School of Medicine in Greece, Professor George Chrousos. Professor Chrousos also serves as a director of University Research Institute of Maternal and Child Health and Precision Medicine. He currently holds the UNESCO Chair on Adolescent Healthcare. He has written more than 900 original scientific papers. According to the Institute for Scientific Information, Professor Chrousos is the highest cited clinical pediatrician or endocrinologist in the world. Professor Chrousos, welcome to our show and thank you for having us here at your office.
Thank you very much for coming.
Professor Chrousos, what are the symptoms on stress?
Well, it's a long list of symptoms, and unfortunately we all know about them. Number one is we feel anxiety. Some of us also feel a little bit of depression. On top of that, we may have somatic problems, pains, fatigue, a little dizziness, problems with sleep, problems with appetite. Some people, when they're stressed, they eat more. Some people eat less when they're stressed. So there are a lot of things that are changing when we are stressed.
Sometimes stress and anxiety are used interchangeably.
Yeah, that's a mistake. Stress is whenever you have a disturbance in your balance. Anxiety is when you feel something about this disturbance. In other words, stress is normal, it's physiological. We are all stressed at times, but not all of us have anxiety. So anxiety is actually a pathological manifestation, whereas stress is normal.
Who are more vulnerable to stress and anxiety?
Well, number one are people that have some mental health problems. So they're more vulnerable to stress, and they're more vulnerable into expressing the various manifestations that I mentioned before. Now, people who are more vulnerable to stress are either more vulnerable because of genetic reasons or because of developmental or epigenetic or environmental reasons. So some of us are born more wired up.
What about children?
Same thing. An anxious child is quite possible will be an anxious adult. So you can see changes in the way we respond to stress very early, from birth.
Is there a difference that children experience anxiety or stress in relation to the adults?
Well, children have different manifestations, more or less. For example, they may cry a lot, they may be cranky, or they may be unable to sleep, or they wake up many times during the night. Children cannot really express their feelings. As you know, the younger they are, the more difficult it is. So they express it by manifestations that are more primitive.
So they cannot express them in a way to deal with them.
Right. So there it's very important the adult that takes care of the child. That's why we need good mothers, good caretakers that are tender and attentive and so forth.
At least the first 5 years, as psychologists say, right?
Right, at least in the first 5 years. They're crucial.
For the development of the personality.
Absolutely, yes.
Of the children.
That's because the brain develops during these first 5 years. There are rapid changes in the wiring of the brain, in the way that neurons are connected one to the other, the circuits of the brain. That's when they're first formed. That's why those years are so critical.
So these years might define their future, right?
Exactly.
And during the COVID-19 pandemic, homeschooling and telework have been encouraged in order to protect public health. To what extent has this situation triggered anxiety or stress to people?
That's obvious from what we've seen. For example, the rates of depression, anxiety, and so forth have doubled or tripled in the population. Also, the amount of antidepressants they use has gone up several-fold. Also, we have manifestations in society that are not good, like increased violence. You know, generally stress increases two things, fear and anger. So you can see, fear corresponds to anxiety. Anger corresponds to aggressiveness. It's the so-called flight or fight response. Flight is fear. Fight is anger. So it's not, in my eyes, it's not so difficult to explain why violence has gone up. It's because fear and anger have gone up. That's because people are stressed.
Because during this time, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many cases of domestic violence reported.
Exactly. People are stressed, they're staying home, they see the same people every day, they've lost their routine, their daily habits, they don't sleep well, they don't eat well, they don't exercise, which is very important. And the end result is to have very stressed people who express anxiety, anger, and all the other manifestations.
And what is the impact on children living in this kind of environment during these times?
Well, they're particularly vulnerable, the children. Children basically reflect the situation of the adults in their home. So if the parents are stressed, that stress passes on to the children.
How do children respond?
Well, they respond with fear and anger. They respond with disturbances in feeding, disturbances in sleeping, disturbances in the regularity of daily habits. You know, humans are, they have a circadian rhythm. That means they have a 24-hour rhythm. And it's good to wake up similar hours, eat breakfast at the same time, and so forth. Go to work or go to school.
How can parents support children, and especially children with special educational needs, during homeschooling?
It's not easy. And of course it depends on the educational level of the parents and whether they can afford to get tutors or, in my opinion, and it's not my opinion, it's the opinion of the American Academy of Pediatrics, children need regular schooling. And we're pretty certain about that. This year, schools will go ahead like they should be. Children should go to school, should socialize with peers, should learn, should move, play. We need to go back to normal.
And how can schools support, in a way, the parents and eventually the children during homeschooling? Let's say that there is another lockdown again, and parents have to support the children while being at home, working as well.
I think there's not going to be another lockdown, personally, because we're doing well with vaccination, despite the problems. And for a while, children will go to school with masks until they're immunized, and school will go ahead regularly. That was enough. There was enough damage, because during the year, last year, for example, when there was homeschooling, maybe children did not lose educationally, but certainly they lost socially. They didn't play with their peers. They didn't go out, they gained weight, they lost muscle mass, they lost their regular schedule of the day. So that's not good. We need to go back to normal as soon as possible.
And also it has been reported that obesity is related to stress, right?
Obesity by itself, yes. Chronic stress is an obesity factor. Just like eating a lot or not moving, having chronic stress does affect body weight.
In addition to the lockdown, that was a bad combination of...
Exactly. Stress hormones, when they're constantly elevated, like they are in chronic stress, they cause damage to the body.
And how can children and adults deal with stress after lockdown?
They should go back to their normal. They should go out and play, they should run, they should move, they should have a regular sleep schedule, a regular eating schedule. Normal life.
Is there a specific diet that you would recommend to people to keep themselves healthy?
Well, Mediterranean diet is the healthiest diet that we know of. So people should eat vegetables, fruits, not a lot of red meat, not a lot of fat, not a lot of sugar.
Sugar is also...
Sugar is bad, yeah.
And as doctors say, it's related to cancer, right?
Cancer, obesity, heart disease, metabolic syndrome, metabolic problems, high cholesterol.
And diabetes?
Diabetes, yes.
Sometimes people say that they feel productive when they are stressful.
Yes, I can understand that. I ascribe to this as well.
So is there a good stress?
There is good stress. Stress that you can handle well, you can manage, and you see it as a challenge is good for you. You gain from it. That's eustress, good stress.
So how do you understand that this is a good stress?
Oh, you know. If you're in bad stress, you know it. You feel dysphoric. Whereas when you're in a good stress, you feel euphoric.
So
you can feel it.
Toxic stress is when you cannot deal with anything, right?
Exactly.
In a way.
Yeah, this stress is toxic. Eustress is good.
And how can stress be prevented?
Let me tell you what I think. I think we should try to have a healthy lifestyle. If you eat well, sleep well, exercise, enjoy your work or enjoy your school, you're going to do fine.
So would you suggest that when you feel happy with yourself, with what you're doing, this is the best way to live your life?
Happiness corresponds very well to health, both mental health and body health, somatic health.
And what is your advice to people who, during the current times, they might feel anxious about going back to work, or students might go back to school or universities, and they might feel right now uncertain about how the COVID-19 is going to develop?
Go back as soon as possible to regularity and to a healthy lifestyle. It's going to help them a lot.
Sometimes people might feel the post-pandemic social anxiety, going out, corresponding to people normal as we used to be before the pandemic.
Well, we have to handle it. We have to cope with it.
How?
If you've slept well, if you eat well, if you take breaks during the day, if you don't press yourself to do things, and if you feel happy, you're going to deal well with others.
What is the message you would like to send to people watching this interview right now?
Get immunized against COVID-19 and go back to normal as soon as possible.
And what about children?
Children 12 and above can be immunized, being sure that there are no side effects and no special problems. The vaccines that are available for children are both effective and safe. They should get it done. Go back to normal, healthy life. Lifestyle is important, and do things that you enjoy. It's very important. If you like art, go to the museum and enjoy art. Whatever you like, you have to use.
You have mentioned in the past that arts and sciences, actually research, helps people be happier.
Yeah, because it's challenging and because it has meaning for the person who is doing it. The happiest people are artists and scientists. It's not me that I say that. Bernard Russell, the famous philosopher, had first suggested it.
Because it's more creative.
Exactly.
Right?
Learn new things. Learning is very important. People feel happy when they manage to learn new stuff or to be able to develop new skills. So enjoy science, enjoy art.
Thank you very much, Professor Chrousos.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for watching Modern Odyssey on Bronxnet. We hope you find this episode useful, and we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts about stress and anxiety on our email modern.odyssey.bronxnet@gmail.com. Until next time, γεια σας.